Okay, let's unpack this. If you cast your mind back to, the early 2020s,
Mm-hmm.
it really felt like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, were just absolutely everywhere.
Of completely unavoidable.
Yeah, headlines were just dominated by digital art, collectibles, selling for these staggering sums.
Crazy number.
Remember Beeple's artwork? That $69 million sale?
Of course. Hard to forget that one.
Or just the constant buzz around, like, the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yeah, they were everywhere, too. Celebrities, brands.
Everyone seemed to be talking about them. But then it seemed to just, fade away.
Right.
So I think the central question a lot of us are asking today is, what really happened to NFTs?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how quickly that whole boom and bust cycle played out.
Right.
We definitely saw this undeniable rapid rise at NFTs as a huge speculative frenzy, mostly 2021 into 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But that was definitely followed by a pretty dramatic crash, say 2022 through 2024.
Yeah.
Trading volumes just plummeted. We're talking over 90% down from their peak. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to cut through all that noise, look at the actual data, provide some crucial context,
Yeah.
and sort of uncover the key takeaways. Where do NFTs actually stand today here in 2025?
Okay.
Because, despite all that initial hype fading, the story is absolutely not over.
And that's exactly why we're diving in. We want this deep dive to make what feels like a complex subject, not just easy to understand, but actually insightful.
Right. Get beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Give you all the essential knowledge, hopefully without the overwhelm, so you can quickly grasp the full picture, the nuances of NFTs.
Yeah.
Whether you're just catching up or maybe you're already deep in this world.
Makes sense.
So that incredible boom period, 2021, 2022, you had digital artists, celebrities, big brands, everyone launching collections, selling out in seconds sometimes.
It really was a digital gold rush, yeah.
Absolutely. But looking back now, were there maybe some early warning signs, for those paying close attention, I mean? Or did the sheer sort of euphoria just obscure the cracks?
That's a really good question. It was a gold rush. And for many, I think the euphoria definitely overshadowed the underlying structure. The market became so heavily driven by speculation, lots of people treating NFTs purely as, quick investments, buy low, flip high, fast.
Right, the flip and frenzy.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it created this environment where, perceived scarcity and hype often completely overshadowed any kind of intrinsic value or, crucially, long-term utility.
Okay.
So the warning signs, in hindsight, perhaps it was the lack of fundamental use cases,
Yeah.
Beyond just being a digital collectible or status symbol.
And then came that sharp drop, that descent you mentioned between 2022 and 2024,
Mm-hmm.
that 90% plummet in trading volumes. That's incredibly stark. Major collections lost most of their value. Loads of projects just vanished.
They did.
So what were the main drivers behind such a, dramatic correction?
Well, several factors really converged there. Firstly, market oversaturation was a big one.
Okay, too much stuff.
Way too much. The space just became incredibly crowded. A deluge of low-quality projects, outright scams, even just direct copycats of successful ones.
Right.
And this drastically, diluted the value of genuine art and collectibles, made it really hard to distinguish quality.
I can imagine.
Secondly, the broader economic climate played a huge role.
Ah, okay. External factors.
Definitely. You had rising interest rates, general financial uncertainty. Investors globally started pulling back from highly speculative assets.
And NFTs were top of that list for many.
At that point, they certainly fit the description, yeah.
So let's fast forward then to now, 2025. Where are NFTs? We've seen some data suggesting a pretty big drop in sales, 63%, early this year alone.
That's right.
With trading volumes falling from, $4.1 billion down to $1.5 billion year over year. That still sounds like a market in, distress.
It is a significant shift, absolutely, no doubt about that. But what's really fascinating here is that despite this continued downturn in just the raw volume, NFTs haven't simply disappeared. The key takeaway, as we've kind of hinted at, is they're not dead, but different.
Aren't dead, but different. I like that.
Yeah. The market is fundamentally evolving. It's moving away from pure speculation towards new use cases, new technologies.
Right.
And this fundamentally shifts how we value NFTs. It's moving from, say, scarcity-driven digital art to more utility-driven digital assets.
Utility-driven, okay.
Yeah, where the worth is increasingly tied to the access or the functionality or maybe the community benefits they unlock. This changes the entire investment calculus, really, for both creators and collectors.
That's where it gets really interesting for me, this whole shift towards utility over hype. What does that actually mean in practical terms? What are some of the maybe most innovative or unexpected practical uses you've seen popping up?
Great. It means NFTs are changing from just being these speculative collectibles into assets with real-world utility, moving beyond just owning a JPEG, basically.
So more than just art.
Much more. We're increasingly seeing them used for things like enhancing gaming experiences.
In-game items.
Exactly. Or providing exclusive access to events, maybe concerts or conferences, or even serving as a sort of dynamic digital identity across different online platforms.
Interesting.
And perhaps most notably, they're being used for tokenizing real-world assets.
Tokenizing real-world assets, like what?
Well, essentially representing ownership of physical things. Could be real estate, luxury goods, even fractional shares of a famous painting, all as a digital token on a blockchain.
Wow. Okay, that's a big concept.
It is. And it raises really important questions about how we define and transfer ownership in an increasingly digital world, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it's not just about utility, right? The underlying tech itself is evolving quickly, too. I've seen mentions of AI, advanced tech integrations, breathing new life into the space.
Absolutely. AI is playing a bigger role. You're seeing AI-generated NFTs emerge.
So art made by AI.
Not just art, sometimes components and interactive experiences, too. And we're also seeing increased integration with, like, virtual and augmented reality.
Ah, VR and AR.
Yeah, making NFTs more interactive, more functional. Imagine owning, say, a digital piece of clothing you can actually wear in multiple virtual worlds.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Another really innovative trend, which actually increases accessibility and changes the investment side of things, is fractional ownership.
Fractional ownership. So splitting one NFT.
Exactly. It allows a single, maybe very high-value NFT to be tokenized into smaller, tradable units on the blockchain.
Right.
It basically democratizes access, makes it more liquid for assets that were previously way out of reach for most individual buyers.
That's a great point about democratizing access. It almost sounds like, well, despite the crash narrative, there are some surprising signs of recovery, or at least resilience. What does that look like?
Indeed. Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. After months of decline, we actually saw NFT sales rebound back in May 2025.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about a 15% increase in trading volume and quite a surge in unique buyers coming in for the first time. And moreover, some of the, let's say, more resilient projects, think like Pudgy Penguins or Doodles.
Heard of them?
They've actually seen sales growth, mostly thanks to mainstream collaborations, innovative features, things that provide actual tangible value to their holders.
So substance over just hype.
Precisely. It points towards a maturing market where, genuine quality, community, and demonstrable utility are starting to win out over that fleeting hype we saw earlier.
What's also particularly striking, I think, is the demographic shift we're seeing.
Okay.
Analysis seems to show that most NFT buyers now are under 35.
Yeah, that's right.
Younger generations really seem to be driving adoption.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why are digital natives proving more receptive to these new forms of digital ownership?
Yeah, this is a crucial insight, I think, and it connects directly to how digital landscapes are just evolving. This younger demographic, the digital natives, as you called them, they're simply more accustomed to and frankly more willing to experiment with new forms of digital ownership and interaction.
That's part of their world already.
Exactly. They've grown up with virtual currencies, in-game assets, online identities. It's normal. They seem less driven by that speculative boom and bust cycle that really characterized the early NFT days.
Yeah.
And instead, they seem more interested in the practical applications, the community aspects, maybe the creative potential that NFTs can unlock.
Okay.
Their comfort level with digital assets just makes them a powerful force for future adoption.
So, okay, while there are clear signs of life, evolution.
Yeah.
What are the big challenges still facing NFTs? On the road ahead, I mean. It can't all be smooth sailing, surely.
Oh, certainly not, no. Volatility remains a huge concern. Prices, interest, they can still fluctuate wildly, rapidly, makes it a risky asset class for many people.
Still risky. Okay.
Then there's considerable regulatory uncertainty. That's a big one.
Well,
Governments worldwide are still sort of figuring out how to classify and regulate digital assets like NFTs.
yeah, that seems complicated.
Very. For instance, if certain NFTs get classified as securities, that could drastically change their trading landscape, market access, compliance requirements, a whole different ballgame.
Right.
Furthermore, there are still technical issues, things like reliance on off-chain metadata storage.
Off-chain, meaning not on the blockchain itself.
Exactly. The actual digital asset or the data linked to it might not live directly on the immutable blockchain. It might be on external servers.
Which could be a problem if...
If that host goes down or disappears,
Yeah.
it's potentially vulnerable. We've seen platform shutdowns expose weaknesses in the overall NFT infrastructure, too.
Okay, that's a concern.
And finally, just general skepticism persists among the wider public. Many people still view NFTs as purely speculative, or maybe lacking real, tangible value unless they're clearly tied to specific benefits or intellectual property.
Fair enough. There's still convincing to do.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all back around then. We've traced the journey from that peak of, well, speculative investment, where everyone seemed to be scrambling for digital art, to where NFTs stand today. It really does sound like, yes, the initial crazy hype has faded, but like you said, they are not dead, but different.
Precisely. That sums it up well. NFTs have profoundly transformed, really, from that speculative frenzy we saw just a few years back into what looks much more like a maturing digital asset class.
Maturing.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it's a clear and I think accelerating move towards utility over hype.
Right.
We're seeing them practically applied in gaming, for event access, digital identity, and increasingly, as we discussed, for tokenizing real-world assets.
Yeah.
The role of AI, advanced tech integration, like those AI-generated NFTs, seamless use in VR and AR, that's really driving this evolution. And it's significantly influenced, as we noted, by that younger demographic, those under 35 who are just embracing these new forms of ownership with kind of an inherent comfort and curiosity.
It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? What does this ongoing evolution of digital assets really mean for our future concepts of ownership, creativity, even the very fabric of our digital economy?
Big questions.
Yeah. This deep dive has certainly been a powerful reminder, for me anyway, of just how quickly digital landscapes can shift and adapt, and how new technologies can eventually find their true purpose beyond all that initial speculation.
Well said. The story's definitely still unfolding.